recorded. So obviously we'll make this available for everyone or anyone that missed last night or this evening. But feel free to ask questions at different points. Just put your hand up and we'll obviously let you ask your questions. But yeah, and look, as we said last night, Rob, anyone on this call that's been involved in some of the previous meetings, if I get something wrong or something's been updated that I'm not aware of, please jump in and let me know. But in a really good way, we've been delegating a whole heap of things and duties. So where I might sort of have a good overview of things, I know people like Rob and Amber or even Alan on this call, they might have some specifics with regards to details that I'm not aware of, which is, in a really good, positive way, the way it should be. So anyway, so I'm just going to share my first document. Okay, here we go. Rightio. Okay. So this is these figures may have changed a little bit. Like I think the volunteer numbers are now up around about 90, Rob, I think. But generally speaking, look, we've had a few more registrations today. We're higher than 413. But our registrations, actually, we are taking registrations up to and including, I think it's like literally 7 a.m. or 6:30. We'll see how we go. But a few people I've been telling everyone that's been making inquiries online that best to get in by Saturday because tickets might have sold out. So if we feel like we want to, we might actually just close registrations on Saturday night so that we don't have to worry about it on the morning of the ride. So anyway, so we've got lots of fantastic volunteers. Before this meeting last week, and I think one on tomorrow night, we're actually having we had a separate meeting for the team leaders, and ultimately, we've set up for the whole event what we call a sort of a command and control system where people will report things up the top. Now, I'll just to remind you, I know Rob Lane from St John's on this call. Rob, I'll finish this page and then I'll let you jump in and talk about St John and what they're doing on the day, as Rob needs to leave this meeting fairly shortly.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so we had our final meeting with the police this morning. So we've got 8 user pays police on the course. And I think I haven't updated this, but I believe there's 11 volunteers now, Rob. For St John's, we have 3.
That's correct.
Yeah, we got 3 Trek mechanical support vans, and hopefully some of those guys are on this call tonight. We have 1 SAG wagon, and when I say 1 SAG wagon, that is a 56-seater coach and a truck. So obviously the coach is there to pick up the riders, and a truck, which we've actually used previously for Go for Broke. Brett, his name is. He'll be the vehicle to pick up the bikes, and we'll go into more detail of what that role is. Obviously, I'm not riding the event. I'll be event director. If everything goes to plan, even if there is an emergency, I'll actually, I'm not the one that will coordinate that. It'll actually be a control room. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But my role will be to, if anyone does need a specific question around the course, I will be available to take a call. I know I'll be touring the course in a vehicle. We'll be following the last rider, and I believe we'll have the CEO of Lifeline in with me. And the idea is that as the last rider goes through, we'll have an opportunity to stop and let all the different rest stops know that they can actually start packing up. In addition to that, obviously saying thanks and just getting any feedback we can as we then follow the rider further on the course. We're going to have a number of photographers and video people on the course, so they'll have access. We'll talk about how the vehicles will be labelled a bit later. And as part of our conditions, if there was a major incident on the Great Western Highway, going through Katoomba, for example, we have 3 56-seater coaches on standby in case we had to stop the event and then uplift all the riders. Obviously, if the road was closed because it had to divert traffic from Great Western, the idea is that that road would obviously, Bellsline Road would then be open, so those coaches would have no problem to pick up riders, even if they had to make a few trips and take them to the finish line at Mount Vic. At all times, all our riders, even with roads closed, are to follow road rules. The road is not just open slather. At any point, we could have emergency vehicles, or local residents are still allowed on the road. It's only roadblocks that we have in different locations. Mind my voice, I've obviously been talking quite a lot over the last few days and just getting over a little bit cold. Sounds a lot worse than what it actually feels. And just to let everyone know, we have received approval from Transport for New South Wales Police, and councils along the route with all insurances in place. And importantly, our public and professional liability does include and cover our volunteers. Okay, I will actually, while this is on screen, Rob, I'll hand over to you because I know you need to leave shortly.
Great, thanks, Eb, and hi everyone. So my name's Rob Lang. Anybody who has done Go for Broke before will recognise me because the last few years I've been out in front commending Go for Broke, the first aid support for Go for Broke. So this year, unfortunately, I won't be on the course, but I'll be locked away in the control room, making sure that everything is working well from a first aid perspective. We have 3 vehicles that will be on course, so they'll be spread out, one near the front, one in the middle, and then one following up the very last riders. We also have a static post at the finish line that will be open for the whole from 9 a.m. through the whole race, and they will also actually have a response capability to respond within a reasonable distance of the finish line if needed. If something happens and there's not one of the on-course vehicles available, then I may choose to send a response team from the finish line. So we have our usual advanced care, advanced life support, advanced airway, advanced resuscitation, pain medicine, all that sort of good stuff. However, for the really serious treatments, we will, of course, utilise New South Wales Ambulance and escalate to them. It's very important, as I say every year at Go for Broke, if you arrive at an incident and it's something that on a normal weekend you would call 000, then please do so. Don't try and call us and waste time without calling 000. In the first instance, call 000 and then try to contact us, and we'll try to get there maybe before the ambulance to help stabilise the patient. But it's really important that you do call 000 to initiate that process. There is one ambulance that's been assigned to the event, and Ed will probably talk later about how that ambulance is going to be distributed around the event. But in the event of calling 000, it's really up to the state dispatch as to who gets assigned. It may or may not be that assigned ambulance because there may be another one closer. That's all up to them. I don't have any control over that. However, I do know the planning commander very well, Mick Bray, and he will be giving me the contact details of the on-course ambulance so that even in the event that we call 000, I'll be able to talk to the on-course ambulance and determine what's happening, because they'll be able to tell me. I don't have access to their systems, but they'll be able to tell me whether they're responding to the event or another ambulance is responding to the event, which may be useful in the control room for us to know what's happening. Again, if it's minor or if you can see us, by all means, utilise us. But if you can't see us and you would call 000, I want to reinforce, call 000. Excuse me. I'd also like to reference, and it appears later in Ed's presentation, what 3 words. So if you can make sure that you have installed on your phone an app called Emergency Plus. If you look it up on either the App Store or the Google Store, it's free. Emergency Plus, as in the plus symbol. What that does is at the bottom, you'll see a feature called What 3 Words. And that gives you, that is basically a system where they have broken down 3 metre squares of land into strange words. I don't have my phone within reach at the moment, but otherwise I could tell you what my location is at the moment, but maybe Ed has some examples later. But it'll just be seemingly 3 random words. It might be coat, elephant, rabbit. It'll seem strange to you, but it's basically a coding of latitude and longitude. So with those 3 words, the emergency services know pretty much exactly where you are. And as someone who had a hiking accident once and had to be rescued, I gave the what 3 words to the 000 operator, and I had a helicopter hovering over me within about 5 minutes. So it's very accurate. There you go. It's showing it now. And what's your what 3 words at the moment? We can't read it.
That's fine. It says type Punks joins.
There you go. Type Punks joins. So with that information, you can go and visit Ed right now. So that's important. The only thing I would add, having used this extensively, is just be careful on the plural words. So as Ed said, punks was one of his. Just make sure you make that clear to the 000 operator, because sometimes that can get lost. But with that information, they can locate you very accurately. By the guidelines of our contract and insurance, St. John Ambulance cannot transport patients, and a patient is someone who requires critical care and should be going to in an ambulance to hospital. So we can't transport those patients. So if we come across such a patient, we will keep them where they are, keep them comfortable, alive and well, to the best of our ability until the ambulance arrives. However, if somebody is just tired, wants to give up, isn't feeling great, but can sit upright in a seat with a seatbelt on, we're not transporting that because they're not a patient. We're just giving someone a lift. So we can make that decision on course as needed. The last thing I'll add is that we do have radios that are on the public safety network, which is the same network used by all emergency services across New South Wales. We're just on different channels, so we can't hear everybody's traffic, but we have our own traffic. Why that's useful is there will be mobile phone black spots on the course, and Ed will talk about that, I think, a bit later when he's talking to the motorbike volunteers. So if you don't, if there's an incident and one of the marshals or motorcycle riders needs first aid or needs to call 000 and you don't have mobile phone reception, but you can see a St. John vehicle, come to us. They'll be able to radio to us, and I'll be able to call 000 on their behalf. So we should have very good coverage because it's the same network used by like RFS and SES and so on, which, for the Blue Mountains, there's a lot of incidents that happen across there. So we should be okay. Not that there won't be black spots, but we should have very good coverage on our radios. I think that's it that I could think of from last night's one, Ed, unless you could think of anything I've missed.
Not at the moment. I think you've covered off pretty well. I said really and we'll talk about this as we go through the presentation, but ultimately it's pass information up. And also on the back of, as Rob just touched on, St. John's have a more robust radio network, in addition to the police, which I spoke to about this morning. If for some reason, there is a St. John vehicle, radio, or volunteer nearby where an incident occurs, then by all means tell your team leader, but definitely communicate to St. John or the police, because they will have better comms. Because ultimately, any information, be it WhatsApp, going through the team leaders, it's ultimately to get all that information to the control room, which we'll talk about a little bit later.
Does anyone have any questions for me about first aid coverage? No, but if you're happy, Ed, I'll head off and I'll see everyone Sunday.
Yeah,
we'll
mate,
see
all
you
the best.
soon, Ed. Cheers.
Okay,
thanks,
mate.
everyone.
Radio. Goodbye. Okay, I'll go back to sharing a screen. Okay, radio. Hopefully we can see. So this is what I call as it says at the top, this is the graphic map. This actual map actually was put in the rider's guide. Just clearly labels the main points of the course. So obviously we have starting at Penrith, at Tench Avenue, we obviously have our start line. And we'll go through a bit more, but this event is designed so all the riders either park or arrive at Penrith Station, however they wish, driving, trains, being dropped off, because all our, I call it on the day of the event, that is the location where everyone gets their tickets, gets their jerseys, in addition to Saturday, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So ultimately, for the first 41 kilometres this ride, well, actually, I'll just say 40 that you see on this map, we actually share the road with vehicles. One of the reasons why our groups are leaving so early in the 4 waves is obviously to minimise our impact on local traffic, and also not much traffic around. So obviously those riders will be leaving in waves of 45-minute or 30-minute splits. They will be escorted by police. And ultimately then they cross Richmond Bridge, and then obviously start climbing, a gentle climb at this point, up until our first rest stop, which is at Kurrajong. And part of this presentation a bit later, we'll be going into each rest stop in detail. We then obviously have our first serious climb of the day, which is Bellbird Hill. And to sort of help manage the riders' expectations, if they're feeling particularly hot, or if they've sort of made sure they didn't carry too much in the way of liquid or drink to help them climb that steep hill, we then have a hydration and water stop at the top of Bellbird Hill. From there, there's still a K or so to climb, but it's a lot more gentle. But then we actually hit the crest of Kurrajong Heights, and there's approximately a 2-kilometre descent. That's where our first on-course marshals will be, to warn riders just to ride within their limitations, not to go too fast. Then at the 58-kilometre mark, we obviously have our Bilpin rest stop. So that'll be a full rest stop, toilets, food, and hydration and water. Then a beautiful part of the course through there, quite undulating, really nice scenery. Before the climbing starts once again at the base of Mount Tomah, and that's a 2.5-kilometre climb. Here riders will actually reach just over 1,000 metres above sea level. And that is also just past, about 100 metres past the KOM, is our third rest stop at Mount Tomah. So probably from that point, then heading to Bell, it is that section of course, that next 20 kilometres from Mount Tomah to Bell, that is the area that actually experiences the most communication black spots. This is where, after our motorcyclists, and I know there'll be a separate brief going out for those guys, but that will be the area that they will heavily patrol. The idea is that if a rider has to stop for some reason, or if there's a mechanical issue, or if there's an accident, that with any 3 or 4 minute period, one of our motorcycle marshals would have passed them. After Mount Tomah is also probably the most technical section of the course with regards to descents. We have some additional volunteer locations after Mount Tomah, which again we'll be going into detail a little bit later. So by the time the riders all get to Bell, that is we turn off Bell's Line of Road, and then we enter Darling Causeway for the last 10 kilometres. Now the finish line is centred obviously around the Victorian Albert Guesthouse. And for those people that are driving up there, or family or volunteers, there's a massive car park on the eastern side of the train station up there. But ultimately our riders arrive, and they can then they'll dismount. We've got Rotary are putting on a sausage sandwich and a drink for all the riders. But in addition to that, we've got a number of cafes opening up, the Victorian Albert Guesthouse, as well as a soft serve van, as well as a pizza van. For those riders that have decided to catch a train back, it will only be stopping at Katoomba, Springwood, and then Penrith. But those are dedicated trains. They will be sitting up in the holding yard at Mount Vic. I believe the normal services on a Sunday are at about 15 past the hour. We can pick the time, but ultimately it will be right between those services. So, for example, if we find a lot of people want to leave at 12:45, then we'll let one go. But if everyone's having relaxed and they want to hang around for a little bit longer, then we'll determine that those trains leave at the most appropriate times. That said, these are the new trains. They are 10 carriages long, and approximately each train can carry about 170 riders and their bikes. This is the more standard map of the same course for those people that to get an understanding of exactly how it works with regards to the normal road network. What is the advantage for this ride versus the disadvantage is that ultimately there are 2 crossings to the Blue Mountains. Bells Line being probably the quieter, less travelled one, with obviously Great Western Highway. What it does mean is any of the volunteers or any family or friends that see their friends or partners leave the start line can head straight up to Mount Victoria without passing the riders via Bells Liner Road. And then those smaller squares are just giving us some detail with regards to the roadblocks. There's one that's actually missing from here. So given Bells Liner Road is obviously a fairly major arterial road, we have police roadblocks at the western side of Kurrajong. We actually have a police roadblock at Lithgow. And then we have a roadblock at obviously Mount Victoria. So ultimately, we're locking down this area. What that means in general terms from a traffic point of view is that we own along Bells Liner Road, our event owns the westbound lane. Locals, residents, not through traffic because there will be physical roadblocks, but any residents from say Mount Wilson or Bilpin, they can leave at any time in an eastbound direction, but at a 40-kilometre speed limit. Part of our traffic control, in addition to having 60 traffic controllers on the day, there will also be a signage that they will put out. Okay. Any questions about the maps and locations? Cool. Otherwise, if anyone's got a question, make sure you just hit the little symbol for notifications. Okay. So not much change with regards to the weather forecast. One of the advantages of this ride, even on a warm day like it's predicted to Penrith to be 33 degrees, Mount Victoria being 1,000 metres, it's actually over 1,000 metres, but being 1,000 metres high, obviously is a lot cooler. The latest forecast actually will say 25, but ultimately there's been no real change in the chance of rain. So for all intensive purposes, it looks like that we're going to have a really good weekend. Reality is those high temperatures, they're normally 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So reality is our guys are getting to the finish line around about 12. Our riders will be arriving between 10:30 and 12:30. Okay. Road and course conditions. So as I mentioned before, the first 41 kilometres of the course is shared with vehicles. So our riders at all times to obviously follow normal road rules. But yeah, as we mentioned before, we've got a series of roadblocks. We've obviously indicated the Lithgow ones. Those times were put in there for the benefit of the police. The only additional one, just so everyone knows, there's actually another location we'll have police with the setup of this event. If any large trucks or vehicles come into North Richmond and they haven't looked at the variable message signs that we've got around the place, then there will be another policeman sitting at North Richmond to then divert trucks back across the bridge to then cross the mountains via Great Western Highway. As I said, we have a good relationship with the police, and ultimately are making sure that they're visible, and not just about the riders, but also just keeping the community sort of aware that this is an official event and it's all been sanctioned. So Bells Liner Road will be closed from about 6 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. We own the westbound lane, as I said before. Local residents can use it. Now, our event vehicles and emergency vehicles, now anyone driving into the course in the morning, in predominantly an eastbound lane, they have a simple registration system, which I think some of you already started. And also any vehicle, there'll be A4 sheets that your team leaders can supply. And for any vehicle that's going up and down the road on a regular basis, then they'll also have an additional vinyl sign that actually says official event vehicle on the rear window. Darling Causeway, it will be closed between 9:30 and 1 p.m. The side street it's not listed here, but the side street at Mount Victoria, called Harley Avenue, that will be closed from 9:30 to 4 p.m. in the afternoon. The day before the ride, we'll be driving the course to check any conditions, like we found some today, which we'll be talking about. And if my voice is still working, I plan to be giving the riders their rider briefings at the start line. In addition to that, we've got a heap of signage out on course that obviously will the riders will be able to see quite clearly, including potentially spraying large potholes. That said, we've had a huge amount of support from the different councils. They have been doing work at various locations. Obviously, like anything, it's hard to close a road to get works done, but they have been trying to do as much as they can for this event. Yeah, and traffic and police escorts. So each of our riders, each of our riderways will be departing with police escorts. One thing to note for any of the motorcycle marshals, given the dynamics of the start line and when the police need to be at certain locations, the second wave of cyclists that leave Penrith will not have a tailing police escort. We will have 2 motorcycle marshals from Vic 100. I'll be putting that in the notes to those guys, but yes, to confirm, the second wave will have 2 motorcycle marshals departing with the second wave. Okay, again, put your hand up if you've got any questions. Okay, cool. Oh, this is the same thing. I've got to do this again, Amber. I didn't hit save. Okay, cool. Rightio. I'll hit save this time, Amber. Okay, so we have a number of wonderful team leaders that are looking after all our teams out on course. So I think some of you, look, any of you on this call, I might just stop sharing for a second. You can introduce yourself. So obviously, I'll give you guys a second to do that, but anyone on this call that's on that list. Yeah, so but Zone 1, looking after the start area, is Amber Hamilton. Zone 2, Sigrid Kirk. Zone 3, Selwyn Kirk. Zone 4, Leslie Fernie. Then we've got our motorcycle team leader, Anthony Ryan. Rob Lane, you've already met. Mel Stewart, who's from Transport for New South Wales, should be in the control room. And the Vic 100 liaison will be Chris Davey. Now, in addition to that, we've also got Alan Leach, who's going to be looking after our start line. And I can't remember his name, Rob, but we also got Bill looking after the Mount Tomah rest stop. Anyway, I'm just going to stop sharing for a second so people can actually see people's faces a little bit larger. So any of those team leaders, if you want to sort of just introduce yourself.
Hey there, I'm Amber. I'm from Zone 1. Good to see you, Mal. Good chat today. Anybody else is in Zone 1, I'm looking forward to seeing you Sunday.
I'll go next. Those Sig's next on the list, but I'm Selwyn Kirk. I'm a relation. I'm responsible for Zone 3. I've spoken to a few of you already, and we'll be following up in the next few days to firm up the arrangements.
I might just jump in. I'm Alan Leach. I'm on the start line. There's a few in my team that I'll reach out to. So I'll see you on the day. Thanks.
And I'm Sigrid Kirk, Ed's brother, Simmon's sister. I'll be at Zone 2. Yeah, I should have a few volunteers on this meeting as well. And I'll be reaching out in the next few days with more details.
Hi, I'm Leslie. I'll be at the finish line and I'll be reaching out to all those helping out at the end. We'll all be giving a big cheer when everyone crosses that finish line, and I'll be getting in touch very soon with you to give you any answers you need. Thank you.
I don't think anyone else.
I'm Chris Davey. I'm in the control room. Nobody will see me. But you'll be ringing me if you need me to get in contact with Ed.
We'll talk about the control room in a few minutes when I'm reminded on my notes.
Cool.
Okay. Thanks, guys. I'll go back to sharing now. Sharing and caring. Okay. Where are we? Okay, cool. Yes, by segue. So, yes, what is an event control room? An event comms and emergency comms. Okay, so ultimately, the event control room, apart from just being a requirement from Transport for New South Wales, it is a central point where all the emergency services are grouped together. Top of the head of the snake, you might say, where there will be representatives from St John, New South Wales Ambulance, New South Wales Police, RFS, Vic 100, Chris that you just met. Who else is in that room? Oh, I'm not sure if they're physically in that room, but we've also got a company that is doing the event timing called Tomato Timing. And ultimately, again, this idea of all communications goes up, that in the case of any critical situations or incidences, everything gets reported up into the control room. And I think the idea of, say, give an example of a rider that has a nasty accident. The idea is, and let's go through the scenario. So imagine we have a cyclist that comes off their bike and they require like an ambulance. Potentially that person may be found by either another rider who might then, when they come across, it could be a police person patrolling, it could be one of our motorcycles, or it could be a St John vehicle, that, be it they find that person or a rider, rides on and finds someone. Ultimately, that message then gets relayed up to the control room. If it was one of the volunteers on this call, we're also setting up a WhatsApp group for the day. So that will be monitored by Chris in the control room, and so that all that information gets shared. But as Rob Lang from St John was saying, if there is a critical incident and you're not sure if that WhatsApp message has got through, if you do see a St John volunteer or someone from the police department, then obviously let them know in addition, because they'll have more effective comms. With regards to emergency services, we're also will have the event has paid for a New South Wales ambulance to be available on course for the event. That ambulance will probably ghost or depart with our first group as it leaves Penrith, and then it will loiter, hopefully not be called to anything. It will loiter around Bilpin, and then ultimately, as say groups 2 and 3 come through, they'll probably then sit at Mount Tomah and wait literally for the last rider, again, if there's no issue, and then they'll probably follow that last rider and the convoy of vehicles that will be heading to Mount Vic. Now, if that ambulance is called, it could even be for a local resident, because ultimately what happens, and let's give a good example. So let's imagine a rider comes down in Kurrajong somewhere. You can call out. Now, I said any major incident, the priority is to ring 000. Now, that doesn't necessarily need to go to the control room, but New South Wales Ambulance will know there is an ambulance on standby for this event. So that ambulance would be prioritised. But from our point of view, all we need to do is ring 000. If that ambulance does get called to an incident, and is then obviously has to facilitate a recovery or to obviously assess that person, potentially that ambulance may just be to transport the patient to a landing zone where there's like various locations along the course. I don't know where they are, but that is at the discretion of New South Wales Ambulance. If that ambulance is then drawn away to take a patient to, say, Lithgow or towards Windsor, another ambulance will be called to replace that. Again, that's at the discretion of New South Wales Ambulance, depending on availability, but that is the theory of how that works. As I mentioned before, that we're going to set up a special WhatsApp group so that is just a really simple way for people to easily communicate any issues. It's not for chit chat. It's obviously for important information. And again, I think that the team leaders can probably talk about those situations and when they use it most appropriately. And as I said, we've talked about this a few times, but ultimately, if in doubt, any issue, then pass it up to your team leader. Or if you're in a remote location, use WhatsApp, or you may have to flag down either police, passing St. John, or even one of our motorcycle marshals. But again, our motorcycle marshals, our volunteers, we're getting them to prioritise the more technical or dangerous sections of the course. Before I continue to the next page, any questions? Cool. Okay. Rightio, Mount Victoria, Victoria Guesthouse. So this is our finish line. So look, we've had a wonderful reception from the guys up there at Mount Vic. And when I say the guys, both the business and the local community up there, they've been very accommodating. I know a number of people on this call will be actually staying at the Victoria and Albert Guesthouse along with myself. Really nice destination, and thoroughly encourage a lot of people after you've seen it this weekend to head back to that part of the world. So after the ride, there is a post-event festival that officially will run from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And that is 4 p.m. is also the time that the side street, when you see the map, Harley Avenue, will open back up. All riders will receive a sausage sandwich and drink on the finish line. We have an entertainer. We have a solo artist doing lots of classic 80 hits and can take lots of requests, I've heard. Obviously speeches, various presentations, and the stage will be overlooking Rotunda Park, which is just on the other side of Harley Avenue. Again, you'll see a map shortly. We have 2 special trains on standby that will take riders and bikes back to Penrith. And as I said before, they will run at times determined by the finish line team leader. Now, I know Brita asked for a copy of all these documents today, but we have to make some amendments to it. But everyone will be receiving the documents that you are seeing tonight within the next 24 hours. So in addition to Victoria and Albert Guesthouse, there are another 2 cafes open at Mount Vic, very close to the finish line, just on the other side of Station Street. In addition to the Rotary Barbecue, a pizza van, and our wonderful Palm Berry van you see in the corner. And given it's going to be quite warm, these guys will be very busy. Okay, so that's that part. Rightio, so what I'm going to do now is show you the event rider's guide. Just in case anyone is concerned, my voice does sound horrendous, but I actually feel fine. I saw the doctor the other day and I'm feeling better. Okay.
Ed, I have a question.
Please.
Finish line. Could the volunteers get a free sausage sandwich and a drink, or just riders?
A good question. We actually have the Rotary Club will have 200 spare sausages, as it were. So the idea was, to be able to give those to volunteers. So yes.
Okay, thank you.
But in addition to that, we are organising. We can't service the start line, but to that point, the start line is the only location except for the finish line where there are obviously cafes and restaurants. But for all the volunteers on course, we're organising with one of the local cafes in Kurrajong village to actually make sandwiches for all the volunteers. That said, it goes without saying, all the volunteers will have access to fruit, bananas, watermelon, and apple. Can someone, I'm getting some feedback, someone might have to turn off a mic. And water, of course. So there will be supplies for all the volunteers during the day itself, but we are getting additional sandwiches for everyone as well. Okay, rightio. So so this is the guide that all the riders received when they over the last week. I'm not going to go through all the details, but again, we'll send this in the next 24 hours. You're more than welcome to read through it. It sort of gives you an idea of what we're telling the riders, what our expectations are, and really for us, the important thing is more about some of the more technical information. So, for example, on this page, we start specifying where riders can actually pick up their tickets and jerseys, both on Saturday and Sunday. And for everyone's benefit, this is what the sticker or label for each bike looks like. It's designed, that dotted line in the center, it's designed to be wrapped around the seat post of a bike. I've got an example somewhere of another event. I know I'm too small on the screen at the moment, but this is sort of the physical size of them. Every rider is allocated their own number. So instead of, this is not just a label. You'll notice in the grey lettering at the top, it says race timer attached here. So we have a number of locations. You might have seen, actually, I'll go back. On this map here, you'll see where we had the KOM and QOM. For those that may not know, QOM stands for King of the Mountain, or Queen of the Mountain. So what those timing chips do is that they allow our timing company, Tomato Timing, when a rider crosses the start line, as that rider then passes those two KOM, QOM locations, Tomato Timing will be able to tell us that that rider has made that location. And also, obviously, when they get to the finish line, they know they've completed it. What's really important about this from a volunteer point of view on the course, if any rider, and this is really important, any rider that couldn't complete the ride due to illness, due to fatigue, due to mechanical issue, that rider number must be reported back to the control room so that ultimately there is an audit done. So we know, if we had 500 riders and, 480 across the finish line, then we're expecting to see 20 riders that were picked up either by the SAG wagon or by St. John's, or went, unfortunately, in an ambulance somewhere. So it's really important for anyone that doesn't complete the ride that their number is recorded. Now, just so I can give my voice a bit of a rest and have a bit of a cough and put my microphone on silent, Rob, did you want to talk about how the process by which people pass the rider number up the food chain?
Sure. Sorry, busy typing something. Yeah, so the idea, as Ed was saying, is that essential information they require to monitor riders is the name and the rider number. So that's the primary information that needs to be communicated. There will be a Tomato Timing WhatsApp group, and all the team leaders will be on that group. So all they'll need to do is say, rider Head Kirk dropped out because he's a great screaming wuss, couldn't do it, and his rider number is 99. And everyone will know not to go looking for Ed in the bushes somewhere. Keep it simple, I guess.
Yep. Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah, so just really important to record those numbers. Down below here is obviously a very stylized map of the start line in relationship to Penrith Station. Again, we've got some more details that will be more pertinent to this call. Okay. But again, volunteers, dignitaries, people helping at the start line, no issue with them parking at the start line. It's only riders that we're asking to park at Penrith Station. Okay. So a little bit more detail around that with regards to the location of where riders can pick up tickets on Saturday, and then on the morning of the event itself. So obviously, we're trying to make it as convenient as possible for people to pick up things on Saturday. It will physically be located close to the start line. As you can see in this map, there's quite a large building in the bottom right-hand corner of that top map. That's all the restaurants and cafes that are there. Now, just for everyone's benefit too, there is public toilets up in this location, and there is public toilets down in this location to direct riders or even the volunteers if they obviously need to go somewhere at the start line. But yeah, plenty of parking behind. You'll see in the more detailed maps exactly what parts of the road are being closed. The bottom map is obviously a close-up of Penrith Station. As it says there, Penrith Station, and when I say Penrith Station, the exit and entry point for Penrith Station is only 100 metres to the right. That large area there is obviously a bus station. The area that we are using, that's part of the Kisson ride loop, But obviously, if, for example, if a rider for some reason was being dropped off by a partner but not parking at the start line, they could drive by, get their ticket, get their jersey, drop off a rider bag if they were still catching a train back, and then be driven to the train station. That said, we have physical roadblocks on the approaches, and there's only one way of accessing the start line, which we'll go through shortly. Any questions before I continue?
Ed, yeah, just a quick one on that setup for the Sunday morning. Is that separate to the start line setup? Is there a different group of people that will be volunteering and manning that part?
Yeah, good question. So these two are exclusive in that if you look at and said this is the rider's guide. So the top map is for Saturday the 15th, 10 to 3 p.m. only. This location on the bottom map is for Sunday morning from 4 p.m. to 7 a.m. only. So 2 different days, 2 different locations. Pre-event, event day.
Yeah, I understand that. But what my question is because who is manning or managing the rider pickup, and is that group of people separate from myself and Al, who'll be managing or monitoring the start line itself?
Rob, over to you, mate. Above my pay grade. Above my pay grade.
So we have what we're calling rider reception at Penrith Station. So that'll be, as Ed mentioned, a team of people run by Amber who will be there to give out the rider tickets, give out the jerseys, collect the bags for the bag service to the bag delivery service, and send the riders on their way to the start line. So that's an administrative centre, if you like. And all the riders, every rider will be asked to park or arrive by train at Penrith Station and go and collect their stuff. So wherever they come from, they have to go through that particular point. They'll then need to ride to the start line where they will assemble, and they will be marshalled by marshals, funnily enough.
Okay.
But so there's no barriers or anything at the start line. There's just a start line. So we'll have, I forget, it's 4 or 6 people at the start line, probably 6, to kind of herd the cats to get everybody on the road in position, ready for the gun to start and for the listen to the speeches. So there'll be, and the challenge there will be, there's obviously going to be riders coming down Jameson Avenue from the station for the next group while they're still gathering and preparing the group that's leaving.
Cool, no problem, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, probably just for everyone's benefit, this is obviously just a bit more detail around the rider waves that are leaving Penrith. So we have 4 groups where we'll be confirming roughly how many people will be in each group. But ultimately, I think, as we were talking about in last night's meeting, it's a bit of a bell curve. The middle groups are heavily weighted. Probably our smallest group is actually the last group that will be departing. But you'll note here that the riders must arrive at the start line with 20 minutes to spare. Okay. Rightio. We talk a lot about our food on course. So in broad strokes, we have the same material or same food and drink at 3 of the 4 rest stops. It's only the one at Bellbird Hill, that one there, where we will only have water and hydration. So the idea is that probably our main stops will be Kurrajong, then Bilpin, and then Mount Tomah. And obviously, we've indicated if anyone has specific dietary requirements, that they make sure that they bring what is appropriate for themselves, or have informed us at some point, but nothing has come through with that regard. Okay, obviously we talk about weather conditions now at the moment. Look, there's actually on Friday at 12 o'clock and then on Saturday, again, we're setting all these things up so we can replicate this year on year. But at 12 o'clock Friday and then 12 o'clock Saturday, we're actually going to have a go, no go. The idea is if there was flooding or if there was bushfires or something like that, then with all our partners, we'd be saying, yep, the event's going or it's not. So ultimately, the forecast, and more importantly, the forecast around Sunday is looking very stable. There may be, it's saying like I think about 20% less than 1 mil, whatever that means. But ultimately, yeah, it's looking very favourable. Not too cold, not too hot. Okay. Important piece of information. Okay. So on that, I'll just go back to it. So on this label, there's actually 3 labels on it. Close that down so I can zoom in. So on this label, we have the main purple one, which is what is applied to the bike itself with a timing chip. Then for anyone that wants a bag taken to the finish line and they drop it off at Penrith Station, they will have a bag label with the same number. Now, I think I'm not sure if we mentioned this last night, but we're also assuming that some riders will lose their bag label, or it will be destroyed or fall off. So we plan to actually have like some labels that we can just manually write a number on it. But as long as it has a number on it, then at the finish line, it can at least be sorted in like groups of 100. So if you're 99, you'll be in 1 to 100. If you're 123, you'll be in the second group, etc., to help them sort it out at the finish line. And the other thing is this other small label down here, which will go back to that other page. So all our riders must meet the cutoffs for this event. So we'll go back to our other much bigger version of that. Okay, here we go. Rightio. Okay. Oh, come on, behave. Oh, okay, fine, be like that. Okay, there we go. Rightio. So this is a small label that the bike, every entrant can, if they wish, and we are encouraging, to put on the top tube or the top bar of their bike, so they literally see it while they're riding. So obviously it has distances to the various lunch stops, or food stops, but more importantly, the cutoffs. Now, one of the things that we actually took a while for us to negotiate with Transport is, unlike a lot of other events, we have our more social or our more casual riders will be leaving first. They have up to 7 hours to complete this ride. Our calculations have been included up to 45 minutes of stoppage time. To that point, I believe we've got 4 cafes that will be open for riders. But importantly, we're going to, obviously, in addition to this label, we'll have 2 large versions of this label, which we will probably have at the start line and at probably, I reckon, Currajong or Bellbird Hill. In addition to that, the other stops will just have A3 versions. One thing for all the volunteers at the various rest stops to be aware of: be conscious of these times. If riders are getting close to these times, please, and they're at one of the rest stops, please let them know that they are getting close to a cutoff and they have to make it. Now, that said, obviously, government agencies love having a definitive time. Speaking to the police today, we do have buffer in these. So, for example, at the bottom, apart from the typo on this, it was actually corrected on the real artwork, but on this visual, apart from finish being spelt incorrectly, the time cutoff for 12:30 at Mount Victoria is 12:30. But from a traffic control point of view, the road opens up at 1 p.m. So we've got a half an hour buffer in there. What that means, if a rider's at Bell, for example, and it's 12 o'clock, and you can see the last rider half a K down the road and they're not quite at Bell yet, if they get there at 12:02 or 12:05, that's okay. So it's not a hard down to the second. There is a minute or 2 buffer in it. But again, if you find there's a rider really struggling at getting close to one of these cutoffs along the course, then your job's probably there to advise them, to say, hey, look, how are you going? what's going to, are you going to be okay for the next stretch? Because, you're getting very close to the cutoff. That said, as I mentioned before, our more casual riders have up to 7 hours, where our faster riders actually have 2 hours less. Actually, I think they've got actually more than that. So anyway, so this is really important for the riders, because otherwise, if they don't make these cutoffs, they'll be placed, when the SAG wagon comes through, they'll be picked up and their bikes put in a separate vehicle. Okay. We'll be going through better versions of the maps, but again, this was just a sort of a simple graphic map for our riders. Probably the only thing of note, because it's clearly marked on this map, is the large parking area that we have off Patrick Street. When I say large, it can hold over 1,000 vehicles, and at the same time is like a minute or two's walk from the finish line and Victoria and Albert Guest House. So very convenient for volunteers, family and friends to get to Mount Victoria without interrupting what the riders are doing. Okay. Yeah, again, a lot of detail for the riders, which we're not going to go through for this call. We do talk about safety quite a lot, and also about good rider etiquette in this document. One of the things that the police want to make sure that we convey on the start line is being very cautious when riders are passing other riders, or when it could be an event vehicle, when an event vehicle is passing them. But as said, the road is closed, but for all riders, there could be an emergency vehicle, or one of the local residents may be leaving in an eastbound direction. So unless you can see ahead, we're telling all the riders that only pass or cross onto the other side of the road when it's not double white lines, when it's safe to do so. Normal road rules. And importantly, Vic 100 is not a race. I did actually have to remind the police when they kept referring to a race this morning. Okay. In addition to that, we do have some simple guides, because given the nature of this ride, in that it's the one day of the year that people can ride this route, we're expecting to get quite a few people that aren't used to group riding. So we have a number of guides in here, small and large groups, but importantly, we also have a safe passing guide. So obviously visuals, how to communicate, in addition to obviously in writing what we're saying as well to support this. Our jerseys arrived yesterday. They look great. So these will be anyone that, not all the riders will be getting these. Whoever's had to be purchased separately. So again, they're not to be just given out willy-nilly. There will need to be, as part of that registration system, if someone's asking for a jersey, what we'll need to do, and this might have been missed previously, for you to note, Amber, is we need to make sure that we know what riders have ordered a jersey. On the start line. Okay. So the reason why we're all here is to raise money for Lifeline. So one of the things we do is we give out 3 yellow jerseys to the highest fundraisers, the 3 highest fundraisers on the day. So in addition to obviously being recognised online and on websites, they actually get recognised during the ride. So those will be issued. We make a point of looking at those at 8 p.m, as it says up here, on Saturday night before the ride, to see who the 3 highest fundraisers are. Okay. We have a number of various signs and flags on the course. They'll be near the start line, then transported to the finish line, and in addition to all our course signage. So this is just a sample of some of the signage that we will be using on the day. If anyone's used to our Go for Broke event, we have a number of signs that we use for that event. Given some of the technical nature of this course, we've obviously changed the signage to suit. But you'll also see that we've got additional signs here just to make it easy for things like bag drop off at the bottom there, bag pickup, and even signs with the guys from Rotary that are going to be doing the sausage sizzle. But yeah, lost property, and more importantly, some of these things on the top here about rest stops and reducing speed on the approach. One of the things we did change in the last week or so is that instead of signs just at the rest stop, we are actually going to be putting volunteer marshals and signs like at least 100, if not 200 meters up the road before riders actually get to the rest stops. Now that is the end of that particular document. We'll now start getting into some more serious location stuff. Before I do, does anyone have any questions? Cool. Okay, let's keep going. Rightio, better go to the start. Okay, now very quickly, we'll be covering a number of locations. You'll see a map similar to this. You'll then see photos and they're more detail with regards to each location. And feel free to ask questions. So obviously this is a map of Penrith Station. Those pink areas indicate the extremely large parking areas that are available there. And this is, so we obviously got the address up there, but ultimately all the riders, to at least, if they're not parking or arriving here, at least to go to this location to drop off a bag, pick up their label, if they're not already picking it up on Saturday at the start line, and then obviously heading to the start line. What that looks like in reality, I know you saw it previously in the next, and we'll see it in the next slide, but this is actually what this map has now been updated. That pink area is actually on the wrong side. It's actually over this location now, and that was done so that people can actually park over here without actually entering the kiss and ride section. And yeah, and then you can see it in context with Penrith Station. Main entry and exit point is here, and over here is obviously where our new place is going to be. And I know you saw this before, but that's just a confirmation of that location there at Penrith Station. This is what all the riders are seeing. And then on Saturday, obviously sitting there in front of the restaurants. Okay, so this is our start line. We did this particular drawing or image mock-up for the timing company. So the sensor itself will be at that location. The riders will actually be gathered on this side of that pedestrian crossing. In a moment, you'll see the actual physical section of the road that's being closed. So for people that are driving to the start line, the road that you can see in the distance, that road will be closed to traffic. You will not be able to get to the start line coming from that direction. We'll show you shortly the best way to actually arrive at the start line if you are driving. Riders can come this way. We're encouraging them to use the bike path. But again, at this section, yes, our riders will be covering the whole road, but as they head off, they will be asked to go into the left-hand lane. So if riders are coming, they can still use that oncoming lane because the riders obviously will be sticking to normal road rules, even though the road is closed. A mud map of that location. So you'll see these lines at in the bottom left of this, bottom right of this this map. That's a large parking area. So any riders that are arriving via the northwest, they can still do that. But instead of riding through the group of riders at the start line, they can go around the back. Now, this road over here, which is still Tench Avenue, you'll see in the corner here, that's the edge of, you can see that's actually the major western motorway that crosses Nepean River. So just off this map, there's actually an exit. So if you're arriving from the eastern suburbs somewhere, then there's an exit on the left-hand side, And that actually then, if you look at on any map or even Google, that it will then take you down past the motorway, and you actually go under the motorway. So anyone driving to the start line, they will be using this road, which goes under the motorway. Okay. This is a more detailed map, and it actually is a better example of how you can see Tench Avenue passing the motorway there. So, for people that aren't used to seeing these, so we call these TGSs, or traffic management plans. So literally for every corner, every location, the traffic control company have literally indicated every sign and every traffic controller that is required. This section in the middle, that will be the area of road that's closed. That will be where the riders gather. And just to confirm what I said before, this is one set of public toilets up here, and there's another large set of public toilets behind the restaurants. Now, does anyone have any other questions about the start line before I go on to Kurrajong? Cool. Okay, great. Radio, Kurrajong.
Actually, Ed, sorry.
Yep.
Where are our MCs going to be standing at the start of the ride, presumably? Is that where
basically that probably for simplicity, it'll be where our traffic controller will be. So no stage. They'll literally be there. Both have confirmed they're coming. And Crafty, Paul Craft, who obviously you saw last weekend, Alan, he's going to be bringing a PA system for the start line. So for anyone, we wouldn't have communicated this to everyone, but we have two MCs for the start and the finish line, the same people. We've got Mike Tomalaris, who used to do obviously the Tour de France for years, and we've also got a gentleman by the name Paul Craft, or Crafty, who does a lot of MCing at a lot of the races around New South Wales, and who was participating at an event that the cycle club that a number of people on this call belong to in Northern Sydney. Very vocal, very good at patter, and it should make it quite interesting. In addition to our MCs, we also have a local Aboriginal elder who will actually be doing a welcome to country and smoking ceremony for each group as they leave Penrith. So it should be quite interesting. But that 20 minutes will be soaked up very quickly. So it, we're not really having much time for speeches as such. The priority is to make sure the riders are briefed in properly, which I'll be doing if my voice is still okay. If my voice isn't okay, I'm sure I'll be talking to Crafty or Mike to do that for me.
And just to let you know, I'm actually present, so it's Crafty here now. So
okay, mate, good to have you.
Yeah, it's all good, mate. Cheers. Did
I paint a good picture?
Oh, mate, I'm blushing as you speak. Hey, I'll put it back on mute now.
Thanks, mate. Good to know you're on.
Ed, just another quick question for me. Did I see for the start line there was mention of a mechanical check for bikes? Is that a mandatory thing? So
no, not a
scrutineering.
Yeah. So there's not a mechanical check as such.
Right.
Like even on Three Peaks, they just make sure your wheel turns, your lights work. There's nothing like that for this event. That said, the three Trek vehicles, and I think some of the Trek guys are on this call, ultimately they will all be at the start line. The idea is that those guys will ghost the groups as they depart. What I mean by ghost is they might not necessarily sit on the rear of the group, because the last thing we want is a large convoy of vehicles behind each wave as they leave Penrith, but they might, pull over, wait 5 minutes for the group to go up ahead the road, where it's appropriate. They might go ahead, say for Kurrajong, for example, but ultimately they'll ghost or hang around waiting for a potential issue. That said, especially when we get into the closed road section, if they wish to just follow a group of riders, that's at their discretion. But ultimately the WhatsApp group will help us communicate any issues. On that label that we spoke about before, I'm not sure if you can see my small screen, but there's actually 2 phone numbers on this. One is what we call the event hotline. That is mainly used for things like if a rider wants to ring that for a mechanical issue, but the emergency number itself, that will be in the situation more of a medical emergency or an issue where there's obviously a critical time issue. Those 2 numbers will be held on 2 separate phones, which will be in the control room. Okay.
Sorry, Ed, one other question. Given the setup crew that's going to be with me, what time can we get in? Because the road's going to close off. Is it closed off from 4:30? Like can we drive in there at 4:30 and put our car in that car park?
Yeah. So look, it's a bit like where I spoke to the police. Everyone's trying to be reasonable, and the idea is to obviously just control the flow of traffic, especially when the rider's on the road. Now, if you rock up, I've got other maps which I could find and open for you. But if you rocked up, down the other end of Tench Avenue up towards Mulgoa Road, and you get out of the car and say, "Hey, look, I'm the team leader for the start line," and you start dropping some names and all this sort of stuff, they're going to let you through. And if it's 4:30, that said, even when I go to this location, I'm coming from Hornsby, coming in from under the bridge is actually the most convenient and shortest way.
Right. Okay. And what you said would hold true for all of the start line marshals that are with us. They can just sort of name drop and get through.
Look, look. My recommendation, and let's make it, simplicity is key. I would recommend and instruct all volunteers to come in on this end of Tench Avenue. It might mean that instead of if you're coming from, say, Richmond, for example, it might mean that you're you have to go a little bit further because you can't go straight down Tench Avenue from the northwest. It just means you've got to go down Mulgoa Road and then turn in into the other end of it. But yeah, for simplicity, I would strongly recommend that everyone comes in from this location. That said, obviously you can see on this map that the roundabout is fully accessible. That said, if you do for some reason drive in from the other end, this road is still available.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks, Ed.
Cool. Rightio. Okay, so this is our first rest stop, Kurrajong, 40 k's in. So we've used a system where the pink line indicates riders that don't wish to stop, and the orange line is where riders would be going if they were actually going to go to the rest stop. And obviously 2 sort of photos of the same area. Now, ultimately, I know Sigrid, who's on this call, the final setup and exactly where you go, we'll leave that to the discretion of, I know there's a company called Max Adventures that is setting everything up, like the marquees and the tables and things like that. But where you set those up, there's some large areas in the foreground. That said, if any of the team leaders want to give me a call, I know I have lots of photos of these different locations. So if you want to see some more detail because you haven't been there, I can share those with you, so you can actually see what's on around that corner and what that looks like where I was standing when I was taking these photos. What the issue is, and there'll be some, there's an additional map that Rob is aware of, is that this corner is very sharp. And what I mean by that is this. So this was a photo that was taken today. So it is not so much a corner, it's actually a U. So we're going to be putting marshals up this hill to control speed before people get there. Anyway, who'd have thought an event is quite dynamic? Anyway, so we were out there today, and guess what? They're doing roadworks. So this is the location. This was taken at around about lunchtime today. Now, this area here, that is where riders are meant to arrive at the rest stop. This is a more distant view of the same scene. So riders, don't worry, it gets more complicated, but riders that were planning to go to the rest stop, they would be coming down here and then entering this location. So just to confirm, at the moment, this area has had roadworks on it. That surface is very surfaceable. You know, it's a hard, packed, you know, it's not rough, it's not coarse. But what it will mean, and we'll be talking about this with some of the other images coming up, is it will be really controlling the speed of the riders as they approach this corner. But yeah, so what the problem is, now I'm going to zoom in onto this photo, is that now this was, just so you know, the sort of, it's really good when we've got the support of councils and even Transport for New South Wales. Like, a lot of people are really helping us make sure this ride is safe and as enjoyable as possible. But when I was talking to the road crew today, they were telling me that tomorrow and Friday, they are ripping up the pink section of road as well. So this is obviously of high concern to us. Overnight, we may get a result in that they might actually stop the planned works. Someone at council obviously stuffed up. But that said, the surface is still serviceable. It's just that we'll have to really slow the riders down. I'll be obviously hyping this up at the start line, where this surface is quite serviceable. What, from a, you know, anyone that rides a bike will know, a lot of difference between hard tarmac and even a hard gravel surface. Ultimately, we need our riders to almost be at walking pace when they approach this corner, because that pink, they're doing two sections, 40 meters on Thursday, and then another 40 meters up the hill on Friday. Hopefully they won't do it, but if they do, I believe they will have a system in place to let us know what the condition of the road is. But ultimately, at the moment, without more information, we're going to be telling the riders to actually go down to almost a walking pace as they approach that corner. Yeah, as you can see, now this, obviously this part of the road, it won't be affected in the slightest. It's the road works up on this section that will be, which unfortunately is when the riders are physically turning. So you imagine a rider coming in at pace and they quickly turn, they're literally going to skid out on the road surface. At least it's predicted to be dry. If it was wet, it would again be literally another dynamic. But as I said, my rule of thumb on the start line will be to tell people to almost go down to a walking pace. Now, to ensure that happens, what we have set up is, okay, so these were some, this is actually, I'll go back one step. So this is an overview map of that location. So probably the biggest thing to note holistically is that this is the end of the event where the ride stops sharing a road and starts entering Bell's Line of Road, where it's actually physically closed. Behind this map, there's an intersection in here. The physical roadblock will be in that location of the satellites on Bell's Line of Road. So obviously you can see here that clear U-shaped turn. Our riders will have some signage that literally say, going, riding on, turn sharp left, go ahead if you want to go to the rest stop. Given the nature of the gravel, there's even potentially we're going to be sending some of this to all the riders on Saturday as well. It's probably, again, when we have confirmation of what's happening, we'll probably make a point of mentioning so the riders know exactly what they're dealing with. Now, a bit of detail. So this is where our rest stop is on this corner. So what we've done today, we haven't put the what three words are in, but again, with regards to Sigrid, you're looking after this location, to be overzealous with regards to warning the riders, so they've got plenty of time. The descent actually starts at point number 4, and it's not particularly steep, but for a rider that doesn't know the course, if they have too much speed coming to this corner and you've got riders that are turning and somebody going straight ahead, there is the chance of a major collision on this corner. So those 4 locations are obviously those 4 spots. Number 4 where this 40 sign is, that's actually the start of the descent. Said it doesn't look particularly steep, but having ridden it a few times, if riders aren't aware, then they will pick up pace. At these 4 locations, we're actually going to have corflute signs, and depending on final, I said configuration, and Rob has seen this for the first time, who's coordinating our volunteers. At least 3 volunteers, maybe 4 at this location, at these 4 spots, but definitely 3, but maybe 4. But again, we're going to corflutes, and to that point, that's why I've taken photos where there's actually signs, signposts to use. And that's where the corflutes will be going. Any questions from you, Sig, or anyone about this particular location? Cool. Okay, and just to back that up, this is actually the traffic control that we've got in place for the day. So again, just indicates the turn back for the riders. We'll have cars, local cars will be coming up, but again, this is why we're going to really slow the riders down at this location. Okay. Rightio. So now we're actually starting to get onto the section of the course where we actually have a closed road. So just to confirm, what we mean by closed road is that the riders must follow normal road rules, but we in effect own the westbound lane. That said, we are still going to have emergency vehicles, police, event vehicles, and even maybe some cafe staff to go to the cafes to open for the riders, maybe passing some of the earlier groups, maybe. Probably not, but maybe. What these 2 red lines obviously indicate is the start and the bottom of the 1.8 kilometre KOM and QOM. This has been done for obviously the tomato timing guys to know exactly where to go. Then if you turn around, you then see this location. So again, we have a situation where some riders will choose not to stop. They will continue on, and riders that wish to turn right will do so. Now we'll have just jumping ahead, we'll have a traffic control person at this location. So any vehicles that are coming down this road, exactly as per this photo, they will actually be controlled so they don't run into the riders as they cross the lane. So that will be managed. Now, as you may have noticed on this map, the riders won't turn into themselves as such as they depart. Traffic control is setting up some witches' hats. So there is an in and an out path for riders. In addition to that, obviously we'll have one of our marshals there just to help direct the riders. Now that said, this location is obviously the top of the steepest climb of the event, so we're not expecting the riders to be going particularly fast as they come up to this location. Okay, but yeah, just to reiterate, this is obviously the traffic control and speed restriction signs. Any question about that particular rest stop, anyone? Senwin, who's looking after that part of the world?
No, we put the extra marshalling in internally to avoid that conflict, Ed, and we're putting cones in as well. That's the plan.
Cool. Yeah, so traffic controllers are actually they're meant to be setting that up for us as well. Okay, rightio. So this is actually the first of what we call our more technical sections of the course. So this is the start of approximately about a 1.5 2 kilometre descent. Really nice descent, but again, we're catering for all levels of riders that might be doing this. Now, obviously, at this point, having the groups climb a number of kilometres to get this point, the riders should be spread out. But obviously, we're going to have signage on here, not just here, but also down the road a little bit. But then on this corner, this is where we want our marshals to also physically flag the riders just to say, control your speed. Supposedly, Transport for New South Wales, there were some potholes or some rough sections of road. Until we drive that part of the course, we won't know what conditions that in. Hopefully it's been fixed. If it hasn't, we'll have special signs up there to indicate that situation and what the riders need to do. As we were talking about before, to help the volunteers get to the right location, This particular location's easy because it's actually an intersection of a Coach House Road and Bellsliner Road, but we've obviously referred to what 3 words for this location as well.
Which is very worrying. It's Despairing Goat and Convert. But anyway.
I know. It's like, yeah. Okay. So after the descent down Corrajong Hill, then we have our first rest stop. Our third rest stop, utilising Bilpin Primary School. Fiona, the principal there, has been kind enough to give us location. So hopefully the riders won't mind using kiddie toilets. But again, I'm not sure if Kevin is on this
Kevin's
call.
on the call. Kevin's on the call.
Hi,
He's
Kevin.
got the keys, haven't you, Kevin?
How you going, guys?
Yeah, good. Good to know you're on the call, mate. So Kevin knows this better than me, but ultimately Kevin will be looking after the opening and closing of the school. And I believe a big thanks to Kevin. I did see some message flash up on phone something about cleaning toilets as well. So, top marks to Kevin. Thank you very much. But ultimately, where you on that bottom photo on the left, where you see that vehicle parked, the idea is that our marquees will be and tables will be set up there on the left. The one thing to also be conscious of is obviously, especially in this location, we could have some of the faster riders coming through at pace. We do have special signs that say, caution, merge with traffic. So any riders that do stop at this location, probably a really good piece of advice to any marshal is say, just make sure you look out over your shoulder before you enter the road, because there could be a fast rider barreling down this road, and it actually is a slight descent. So make sure that they give way to any riders that are riding the course before they just blindly go into the lane. Okay. Bit of a mud map of that same location. So that loop road is almost perfect rest stop. That said, given that we've got a number of rest stops along the course, we're thinking this might not, a lot of riders may bypass this stop. It's probably more the Currajong and Mount Tomah rest stops that we believe most of the riders will actually stop at. But yeah, just a good overview of that location. Okay, next location, Mount Tomah. So again, photos of the top, the bottom and the top of the climb, approximately 2.5 kilometres. Just for those, I haven't got a photo on me at the moment, but if anyone's familiar with Starlink satellite service, the sensors that the riders will pass look like just small grey rectangles that will be pointing out towards the road. So they obviously will be trigger as they go past these points. The physical rest stop, which you'll see shortly, is just up here, where what looks like some lighting in the distance. So it's not too far past that location. So let's get right there. So yeah, so here is a mud map of that location with a close-up of that side road, which is Rainbow Ravine Road, as it says there at the top. So again, the riders have just climbed a fairly steep hill. That said, the top of this climb is a nice gentle roll. So anyone that has come up over the hill at pace, we just need to make sure that they stay to the right, as any riders that wish to turn to the left into the rest stop have plenty of room. Again, traffic control are going to be putting in some special cones, so because the one road will be used for riders to exit and enter. You'll see another photo shortly. Okay, so in the background here, that's Bellsliner Road. Fortunately, Transport are doing a number of road works and road stabilisation at the moment. That won't impact on the road itself, but this is the area they're currently storing all their equipment. But as you can see from the scale of the two cars here, there's quite a large grass area. And in this location, this is where we're going to have a series of hired portaloos as well as marquees. This location will also be the spot where where we'll have a 400 litre water container. Given this is the last stop before Mount Victoria, which is another 30 kilometres on, please encourage all the riders to fill up their water bottles. As I said, I'm expecting our last rider by 12:30 at the finish line, but the temperature may be starting to kick in at about 20 degrees. As I said, just remind anyone that stops that they need to have enough water for the next 30 kilometres. At every rest stop, we're going to have water, as well as our wonderful partners, Tailwind, are supplying product in 25 litre containers, which obviously riders can choose to either use the water or the hydration itself. Okay. Now we've got a number, the next few pages is a number of locations where we'll have what I call remote marshals on some locations that are probably the more technical areas of the course. So after Mount Tomah, there's a number of steep descents. Absolutely beautiful part of the course, by the way, but hopefully the riders will be concentrating on descending and not the view as such. But at this location, which is about it's about 200 metre walk down from the rest stop, there is a spot to obviously park there. So here we'll have signage, but also at least 2 marshals warning riders of the start of this descent. The one thing I had about these photos, they all look quite benign, but reality is it is quite steep through here. Again, experienced riders will have a wonderful time through here, but our concern is for riders that actually haven't ridden this course, which for obvious reasons is not many. Okay, this is our second location. Only not too far down the road, as you can see on the map below, but there is a little spot to park. This particular corner is, again, just given people's technical ability, they need to be able to ride within their skill level. So our job on the day with these locations is really just to remind people not to go too fast and to be cautious as opposed to going a bit crazy and excited. The other important thing about these areas for the motorcycle guys is we want you guys to really patrol this area regularly. So that means going up, you might go down with a rider, but then come back up. I think Anthony Ryan, who's looking after the motorcyclists, you might designate to have one motorcyclist going up and down this descent, or you may take turns. I'll leave that up to each team leader how they work it out. But this between the rest stop at the top and the base of this hill, this is one area where I would love to have a motorcyclist just going up and down, making sure if anyone does come off the bike or has a mechanical, they get looked after straight away. It'll also be an area that I'll have St. John loitering, making sure that, again, if anything goes wrong between a motorcycle marshal and St. John, that we've actually got basically this area being patrolled during the whole event. The last location is obviously further on. What I might do is just quickly go through those 3 areas. So if you're just looking at that bottom map with the pink circle, not very far from the rest stop. The second one, is another probably half a K down the road. And then we've got our third spot, which is like quite a bit further. So we've just left Mount Tomah. This is actually on the western side of what they call Mount Bell. There is a little location where people can park. You'll see some photos very shortly if you are the volunteers for this location. But again, there is a corner in the distance, which you'll see better in a second, that has a bad camber on it. For experienced riders, not an issue. But for people that aren't, obviously not familiar with the course, but they need to make sure they're not going too fast. Oh, okay, where's that photo? Oh, must have missed that photo. I'll bring that up momentarily, but I had some additional photos that looks like they haven't made this PDF. I'll come back to that after this particular area. But ultimately, in this location here, there is a wide area to enter between the barricades and park in here. Now, that said, this is a really good example of when that last rider does pass and you see a police motorcyclist behind them. What I'll be doing on the day is I'll be loitering behind them. I'll be stopping at the different rest stops thanking everyone for all the work they've done. And then that will also be, in this case, the road will still be closed. And for these remote locations, as soon as you see myself, I'll be making a point of stopping and saying hello. But when you see me on the day, that is when these remote locations need to pack up while there's no vehicles on the course. Okay. So yeah, so now we're going to go straight to the finish line. Okay. So this is the building on the right is the balcony of the Mount Victoria guest house. Now, it's not a mistake, but that red line is on the left-hand side of that road. So anyone looking up maps, Darling Causeway is the road that the riders do for the last 10 kilometres. When it enters Mount Victoria, it turns into Station Street. Our finish line is approximately here. I think our timing chip will actually be further down the road. That'll give Crafty, that'll give you and Tomo an opportunity to actually get those names coming in. Now to that point, Crafty, we're going to have you sitting down here on the balcony. So, mate, you'll be like rock stars sitting there on the veranda as the riders cross in front of you on the finish line.
Fantastic.
Got to make all our volunteers as happy as possible. And obviously, I saw a photo come through today. This was a quick mock-up we made the other week, but we're going to have a archway like this at the finish line. So, in addition to we've got, while I think of it, so for the event, we have not a relative, surprisingly, we have a gentleman by the name of Jason Kirk who will be doing photography at the start and the finish line. We then have what I call a photography company that's set up at 3 or 4 locations and snap away every cyclist they pass. One of those photographers will be at the finish line getting photos of everyone as they cross. In addition to that, we also, and maybe he's on this call, we're going to have a gentleman by the name of Andrew Cooney and his team videoing this event across a number of teams, which will be, from a car, and drone work. And one thing I will mention, if Andrew is on this call, as part of the control room that Transport for New South Wales are doing, they, in addition to monitoring all the regional roads around this event, Great Western, out towards Lithgow, they are actually putting up their own drone to monitor the event as it passes along Bells Liner Road. So, Andrew, in the next 48 hours, I'll probably put you in contact with a lady by the name of Mel Stewart, who is, I'll call it the team leader for transport on the day, who will also be in the control room, just to get an understanding of the protocols around your drones versus their drones, and where they plan to be versus where you'll be, just so that everyone's on the same page. Okay, rightio. Okay, so this is a mud map of our finish line. So Victorian Albert Guest House is located on the corner, this building here. Our riders come up from Darling Causeway, heading south. There is a nice gentle climb. So in a really good way, after the riders actually pass through the finish line, they will be able to sort of naturally slow down before they then turn into Harley Avenue. Now, one of the things that changed in the last few weeks is we had there was going to be an issue. There potentially was going to be track maintenance this weekend, but we've made sure that we've got the trains available. With that, this is the reason why our start line or our finish line archway is on the left-hand side of the road, is because we're going to have traffic control in place. If any disabled access is required or staff to Mount Victoria Station, then that access will be heavily controlled. And what we mean by that is traffic control will hold them. We'll have a marshal here somewhere to actually hold back the riders so they don't cross in the front of the path, let the car pass, and the riders can then continue their journey into Harley Avenue. That one lane will be used for both directions. So that is why our finish line is on the left-hand side of the road. Obviously, as our riders finish the event, they turn into Harley Avenue, and this is where they will dismount. After all our riders have arrived, this location here is we'll have a small stage set up for presentations. This road, Harley Avenue, will stay closed until 4 p.m. in the afternoon. This Rotunda Park, lots of nice trees, lots of grass, beautiful spot to sit out, especially given it's going to be about 24, 25 degrees in this location. Riders, obviously, when they arrive, they'll be coming in here. The Rotary Club will be having they've got the barbecue set up here in addition to our food trucks. The other cafes that are opening, in addition to Mount Victoria and what they'll be selling, we then have one of the other cafes is here and another one here on the other side of the road. So for people that are in Rotunda Park, there's a number of options that you can take up. As riders arrive, this grey line is actually a paved or tarred area. You'll see a photo in a second. We'll have portaloos in this location, and then we'll obviously have our rider bag pickup. It's indicated here as a red square, but it's actually, the bags will actually be kept as one of the storage areas within this grey box here is actually a series of sheds. So that'll be happening here. Some of our event partners and sponsors will also be located across here. And there's a large grass area on the right, as well as this area here. And obviously quite a number of bike racks for bikes to be stored. Now, just for people that haven't visited Mount Vic with regards to the train station, the time, if I was walking from this corner here to Mount Vic, a train station, it would take me a minute. It is literally right beside the finish line. So for anyone that is loitering around, having a few drinks and they plan to catch a train, we'll be making announcements at the finish line to make sure everyone knows when those trains are going. That said, we have these dedicated trains, but there's obviously one service, a normal service every hour. The only issue with those trains is that they are what we call those old silver trains where they've got very narrow doorways. There's nothing that I can do to stop any rider taking themselves and their bike on those trains. Transport for New South Wales, who control the trains these days, they prefer not to have riders use those trains, but there's nothing, if for some reason one of the dedicated trains doesn't suit your particular or the rider's particular timetable, you can let them know that other trains do depart every hour that you would just see on any transport app. But as I said, we've got 2 dedicated trains, new trains, really easy access. That's what we're encouraging on the riders to use, as opposed to the what they call the V-sets, the silver trains that you often used to see a few years ago. Now, I know Leslie's on this call. What I'm just going to quickly do is, this location is approximately where the stage is going to be. This is overlooking Harley Avenue, which is over here. Now, the rear of the Victoria and Albert Guest House, these red areas actually indicate where all our food trucks will be for the day. That Rotary barbecue location is actually incorrect. It will probably be it'll probably be the soft serve van, but ultimately all our food locations will be approximately in this location. And as you can see, we've got a large grass area here. There's if you look up the Victorian Albert Guest House on your on any web browser, you'll get a good idea of what the place is like anyway. Okay, now this is actually the last slide of all the presentation we've got, but probably the most important thing, apart from obviously, again, we've got traffic controllers at different locations, so you can really get a sense that the route is being locked down. There's no physical police at this location, only because the reality is it's obviously very easy for people to use the Great Western Highway and not turn into Darling Causeway. But speaking with the police today, now, obviously, all the hard work that everyone has done about this event, we want to make sure that we do it year on year. And to that point, Transport for New South Wales, State Rail, and all the councils have already been told that what the event date for next year is, which is the 15th of November. So put that in your diaries. If you enjoy the experience this year, put it in your diaries for next year for the 15th. Obviously, that is not officially approved yet, but they have been made aware, and that has been tabled in meetings. Now, one of the most crucial things to ensure that happens is that, like our small Go for Broke event, which has had a great safety record over the last 10 years and raised over $500,000, is that we need to make sure that any rider that does our ride doesn't then ride down to Penrith. Now, to be transparent, every time I've done this ride, which has been 6, you get to Mount Victoria, and of course you go, great, I'm at the top of the mountains, I'm going to have a great time and ride all the way back down to Penrith. But the problem is the first 10 kilometres from Mount Vic to Katoomba has little or no shoulder. If I get one cyclist in a accident with a vehicle, or unfortunately dies because of an accident, that's one rider. You imagine 100 or 200 riders trying to ride back down to Penrith on roads that don't have a shoulder. Even just the traffic issues that could cause would stop this event happening in the future. So we have 2 police sitting right down here on this intersection. And in our rider's guide, we actually say we don't want any riders to go back down to Penrith. So we'll have, actually, in addition to 2 police, when the police finish their duties, they all plan to gather here. So I'm looking forward to getting a photo done by one of our photographers on course of basically eight policemen in either on motorbikes or cars sitting here, basically physically blocking any rider that wants to head east back down the highway. So you can obviously see on this map, this is a pinch point. There is no other way to cross this area. Now, we just want to make sure that no rider that's done our event then rides back down to Penrith. Now, one last thing which was brought up the other day. Now, obviously, Bellsliner Road doesn't get closed every day of the week. We do have a concern that a number of cyclists will attempt to do this ride without registering for the ride. They might not necessarily join at the start line. They might jump in at North Richmond or Kurrajong. So all I can ask our volunteers to do, if you see any bike, especially in the area that the roads are closed without a sticker on their bike, please ask them to return from where they came, because I'm not part of the event. Now, from our point of view, and we've had this discussion with New South Wales Police and Transport for New South Wales, now the law is that the police, including St John's, including all our volunteers, cannot physically stop a rider from riding on these roads. Even, we had clarity today, even though we're closing the roads, they are still public roads. But I've been given permission to tell everyone on this call that as a volunteer, if you're and a really good example is the top of Bellbird Hill, our first rest stop after the roads closed. One, if you see a cyclist there without a sticker, make sure it hasn't fallen off. But reality is these things don't fall off. Assume they're doing the ride without being registered. All you can do, one, if they're at a rest stop, don't give them anything. Please, discourage them. Obviously, they've obviously got no permission to have any of our drinks, any of our food. But do say what you can say to them. Say, look, please, we've closed this road only for registered riders. We ask you to ride back the way you came. They could ignore you, and if that's the case, all you need to say to them, say, look, if you have the time, I would actually love you to take a photo of that person if you have the opportunity, but it's not necessarily that you do that. But what I do ask you to tell them, even if they're riding off into the distance, is just to say, our motorcycle marshals and the police will be questioning you as you go further up the road. So the police have told me they physically can't stop a rider from continuing the ride. But what we can say is that, and the police have been instructed to do this, if it's safe to do so, they will, if they see, and remember, most of our coppers are going to be on motorbikes, if they see someone without a sticker, they will stop them. But it doesn't mean they can stop them from continuing the riding, but they will question them. So that's what we can say to any rider we see with no ticket, is to say that, look, please turn around. If they don't, just say, look, we have user pays police, we have motorcycle marshals on course. They will ask you, they will ask you to pull over and ask you to turn around. They can't force them to continue. They can't force them to stop, but they will question them. And look, the real big issue for us is that we can only do our best. And this is where I was speaking with Transport about this. So from a duty of care point of view, you imagine a situation where we have an unregistered rider doing this course and they cause an accident with some of our other riders. Now, if we've done the best as we can to discourage that rider from continuing on, but they still do, we've done the best we can. But from a safety point of view, obviously, if they haven't received the briefing on the start line, they don't know where there's potholes, they don't know there's signs on course for certain things, then that's a potential risk for us. But it has been confirmed that physically the police can't stop them, but we can ask them to pull over. And again, that is only the police's job to do that. As a motorcycle marshal, you can ask them to pull over, but if they ignore you, you can't physically stop them. And that goes for any riders and any vehicles. Your job is to look after our riders, but you physically can't ask them to change course, to do something they don't want. That is where you go to the police. So, for example, if you see a motorist doing the wrong thing, or driving erratically, or just being rude or something, your job is to report it, not to do anything about it. And in addition to that, and this came up with the police today, obviously we're closing a road that is normally never gets closed. We may have some locals driving in a westbound direction to access some of the cafes. Now, the police have been briefed to have a soft touch for this event, not to pull everyone over just because they're there. Their job is to control the event from a policing point of view and to make sure everything's safe. It's not to be draconian and stop every vehicle doing anything. So if they see a car going a K up the road to a cafe, they're not necessarily going to pull them over. They might, but their concerns may be somewhere else. Their concerns will be more about, a driver going too fast, a driver, ducking in and out of riders heading west. But if a car is not an event car, but say going half a K up the road, or even 2 Ks up the road to get to a cafe, if they're going at a slow pace, taking their time, that's okay. I said, I know Kevin's on this call. We've done so much we can to try and lessen the impact. And by opening up cafes, obviously we want locals to be able to enjoy that experience. I'd really love, the scenario where 20 locals might be at one of the cafes that are open, and they're cheering the riders on. That for me is a great outcome for everyone. And remember, we're getting cyclists from Brisbane, South Coast, Canberra doing this ride that have never seen this part of the world before. I'm already aware of riders that have stayed up in the area, and spent money because they just don't know. And I hope that in time, a lot of people will actually go. It's a beautiful part, especially with destinations like Mount Tomah Botanical Gardens, but obviously all the fruit markets and things like that. We hope that in time, there'll be a real economic benefit, not just from the day itself, but more importantly, people just being exposed to the area and discovering the area for the first time. Now, that, as far as I'm concerned, is enough of my speaking before my voice completely dies. But does anyone have any questions about anything?
Ed,
Yeah.
could you please show on the map where the large parking area is behind the station? I've had a few questions on the chat.
Okay, fine, rightio. So on this map at the moment, what I might do, actually, look, putting it very simply, it's this location here. So now any of the locals that know this location, there was a number of large potholes where Patrick Street crosses the rail line and then hits the gravel. Blue Mountain City Council have been up there with a grader to smooth all that area off. So it is gravel, but it has been worked recently to make it no issue for any type of vehicle. So 24/7, this area is accessed obviously from the eastern end of Harley Avenue, and then they turn in over the rail line to access this large area. It's hard to see on this map, but here in this location is actually a footbridge. So even if you don't want to work back along that gravel path and this narrow bridge, we recommend people actually use this footbridge here to access the festival. And as said, we've been up there numerous times, but literally over 1,000 cars, because one of our constraints with regards to the application is not to have lots of people parking in the suburb and impacting on the local residents.
I have one question, Ed. Is it worthwhile just covering off what's in the tote bag?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so again, via the various team leaders, all our volunteers will receive a bag referred to as a tote bag for the day. Now, in addition to sunscreen, which we'll have at each location, the tote bag will ultimately, even though there's water at the rest stops, we're also conscious of some of our volunteers are in remote locations. So especially those volunteers in remote locations will have a bottle of water, they'll have a muesli bar, they'll have fruit, which in the way of an apple, banana, and more importantly, some emergency contact information. And obviously, for those specific locations, we'll probably do some copies of some of these maps so they know exactly where they need to go if they haven't already received it electronically. Have I missed anything, Rob or Sen?
It's more about how they get the bags as well, Rob.
Yeah.
Sorry, excuse me. They're going to get a cap and a high vis if they're in an on-course position.
Well, actually, more to the point. So all our volunteers will have a T-shirt to keep and a cap to keep. We do ask for the tote bags and the high vis to come back. I'm sure no one wants to walk around their local suburb with a Go for Broke Vic 100 high vis. But yeah, so now we'll be distributing all these items via the team leaders. If for some reason you can't find the size, or you want to prefer a smaller T-shirt, we'll have a lot of spare T-shirts at the finish line. So even if you're wearing a slightly big or baggy one or a slightly tight one out on course, we'll have a location probably where we have the bag pick up and drop off. We'll probably have a location there where we'll have spare T-shirts. So if you want to swap, because the idea is that one, we want to obviously show our appreciation by giving you some apparel from the event, but hopefully you might even think about coming back in following years and you can reuse it. But we will be producing new T-shirts and new caps year on year. So even if you don't, it's a small token of our appreciation. So now I'll open up the floor if there's any additional questions.
Michael's got one about what we should be wearing, anything in particular. Comfortable shoes, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about, and I'll just make a point of having a look now. Actually, one thing I did want to do, I'm going to stop sharing only because I'm going to change it. Rob Lang was previously talking about the app, Emergency Plus, and I took a screen grab, which I'm going to open. Just hold on a sec. Okay.
And Rob, it's probably fair to say that the team leaders will be contacting the volunteers over the next couple of days, just giving them any updates and making final arrangements and allocations, because there's a few shifting roles and availabilities. Is that fair?
Yeah, we're having to juggle things a little bit because as team leaders reach out, as you're probably aware, some of the volunteers are saying, "Oh, actually, no." So we're having to sort of shuffle things to plug those gaps.
Okay. Rightio. Hopefully everyone can see that. So that's
Can't see anything yet at the moment.
Oh, okay. Nothing yet. It's telling me it's being shared. I'm just going to. Got too many applications open. I think it's having apoplexy.
If it's a big file, sometimes it struggles, Ed.
No, it's not. It's small. Anyway. Still can't see anything? Okay.
No.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably because I've got 20 applications open at the same time. Okay, cool. Righty, I'm going to stop sharing. Yeah, I've gone frozen. Yeah, I'm moving again. It's doing something weird. Cool. Is that better? Yeah, okay, cool. I might just try that one more time. I'll just try and quit out of an application or two. Does have 48 gig of RAM on it, but I think I've pushed the limits on it today. Okay, let's go back to Teams. If this doesn't work, we won't worry about it. It was just a screen grab, the app that, yeah, it just doesn't like it, doesn't want to share. I'm going to stop. Okay, no sharing. Okay, cool. It's frozen. Yep, doesn't like that. Yeah, I might not try. Okay, does anyone, if people can hear me, does anyone have any other additional questions? Testing 1, 2, 3. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, and no for me.
Hold on.
Okay, cool.
I've got a question. How flexible are we on moving the allocated positions for the volunteers?
If you need to move them on the day for some good reason, as long as we're covering the critical. So it's the briefing you get.
Okay,
for me being all the critical positions.
Yeah, for me being Zone 2 leader, on the volunteer location, I'm supposed to be at Richmond Bridge to Currajong Hermitage Road. But on my briefing, it says I should be based at the Currajong RFS.
Yep. So the area that your volunteers will be at, that zone starts at the north end of the bridge and finishes at the Hermitage Road. But yeah, it's not like you have to patrol that in any way. You'll be at Currajong RFS for volunteers to contact if they need to.
No worries. Okay. That's all.
That said, Rob, actually, I've got one question, only because it came up with the police. Down at North Richmond, when riders come off the bridge, do we have a marshal at, I think it's Pit Lane?
Yes.
We have two.
Great, awesome.
That's a critical stop.
Yeah, I couldn't
Bells Line of Road and Pit Lane.
Yeah.
That whole waggle through there, around the back of that shopping centre, is 3 critical locations for marshals.
Good. I couldn't remember exactly, but yeah, that's good. The police.
Yeah, I mean that one's important because there isn't even an Altus guy there.
Yeah, cool. In addition to that, what was I going to say? This is more for the riders, but if on the day, and a good example is this will give special instructions to the police, at least as, remember, this won't really happen. This will only happen as, so as each wave leaves Penrith, the lead motorcyclist, as in police motorcyclist, they will stay out the front of each bunch until the groups merge. That policeman will then just go on general touring duties, you might say. If that lead police motorcyclist for each group until they merge sees anything of danger, or like a branch suddenly falls on the ground, they will slow down and put their lights on. But this is for the riders, not so much for you guys. But if there is a motorcyclist in the front of a bunch as they approach Currajong, I'll be telling them to slow right down and put their lights on to help obviously manage that particular corner.
Good idea.
Actually thinking about that now, if we might actually have, this is a really good idea. Thanks for Anthony for thinking of this. What we might do with the motorcyclists, that our guys, we may actually have someone, if they see a large group of cyclists coming down, we might actually get one of our motorcycle guys to enter the flow of traffic or the flow of riders, put their hazards on, because again, I'll be briefing the riders about this on there. So again, they might not be in the riders, but they might just be trying to slow them down. But I said I'll speak to the motorcycle marshals about that. Again, just really conscious of that particular corner now. We will need to get the riders down to walking pace.
We've got that as an explicit instruction at that junction.
Yeah, okay, cool. Otherwise, it's been a good session. I think we're still recording. That's probably why it's probably why my computer's going slow, because it's been recording over 2 hours of video. That'll be why.
Ed, I just have a question.
Yeah.
With that roadworks where you need them all to slow down, could you have a motorbike rider in front there as well?
Yeah.
Would that work?
If hopefully in one way the waves may not have merged yet, and there'll definitely be a police motorcyclist in front. But yeah, I think that's actually a really good idea to have a motorcyclist, one of our guys, in that area. But if there's a long stream of riders, small groups, big groups, obviously it's hard to slow all those riders down. It's not like they're at the front of a wave. But as said, probably more the point. If there's an opportunity to do that, yes, it'd be good just to, but physically it'd be hard to slow the riders down if you're in between riders. It's more about probably controlling the flow with what we've got now. But yes, if it's a new bunch coming through, it'll already have a police motorcyclist in front. We'll make sure they slow down at that corner. Otherwise, if that's it, I'd just like to say thank you very much. Obviously, I'll stop recording in a moment. Yep, it's been 2 hours and 10, almost 11 minutes. And I'm not sure how big a file will that be. I've never gone to share a 2 hours of a Teams meeting before, but I assume it will be a link somewhere. But anyway, I said with the team leaders, I know there's going to be a catch up tomorrow night, which I know I'll be attending. So again, the idea is you don't have to know everything, but ultimately there is a different levels of command. That even if I had a particular question, I'll be ringing the control room. If I see a rider that's doing the wrong thing, it's not registered, I'll be contacting either one of the police beside the road or ringing the control room again, passing it up to get clarity. But again, just to reiterate, our job is to make sure our riders are safe, are looked after. We're not there to police them. That's what the police are for. And obviously St. John's are there for any medical assistant. We're also going to have a small first aid kit at every stop. So if someone's got a small graze or they might have had a Band-Aid that fell off and they got to put it, we'll have some basics there for the riders, in addition to obviously anything that St. John needs to do. Cool. Okay. Can I hit stop now?
Hit stop. Can I have 1 minute of your time when everyone's gone, Ed?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Okay.
And just one thing, Ed, sorry, 2 hours of video briefing may be daunting for some.
Yeah, I reckon.
don't know. I don't know whether we can edit it because it's a time-consuming exercise in its own right. But I'm just thinking, based on some of my conversations, it might not be attractive to many of our volunteers